The Harmony's edge moved slowly through the dark space between stars. Captain Veltara had been exploring the galaxy for over 20 years, but she had never seen anything like this. Her ship's sensors were going crazy, picking up something. "That shouldn't exist. Captain, you need to see this," called out her science officer, pointing at the main screen. There, floating in the endless black, was a ship. But not just any ship. This one looked like it was built by children playing with scrap metal. Veltara moved closer to the screen, her 6 eyes focusing on the strange craft. The hull was made of basic steel, welded together in rough patches. The engines were simple fusion drives that her people had stopped using centuries ago. Everything about it screamed primitive technology. "How is that thing still in one piece?" she whispered. Her crew gathered around, equally confused. Ships like this shouldn't survive a week in deep space, let alone the decades their scans suggested it had been drifting. But the real shock came when their medical scanner beeped. "Captain," her medical officer said, voice shaking slightly, "there are life forms aboard that vessel. They're alive." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The ship's computer had already traced its origin point, Sol 3, a world so dangerous that the Galactic Council had marked it as Class 15. No one had ever survived on a Class 15 planet. These worlds were death traps, where everything from the air to the ground tried to kill anything that moved. Veltara remembered her training. Class 15 worlds had crushing gravity, poisonous atmospheres, and weather that could destroy entire cities. The radiation alone would cook most species in minutes. Some had active volcanoes. Others were covered in ice so cold it would freeze blood instantly. A few had both at the same time. "Are we sure about this reading?" she asked, though she knew. Her equipment never lied. Her science officer double-checked everything. "Confirmed, Captain. Multiple life signs. Weak, but definitely alive. They appear to be in some kind of sleep state." Veltara felt her hearts racing. In all her years of exploration, in all the stories passed down through generations of space travelers, no one had ever found intelligent life from a Class 15 world. The Council had studied hundreds of these death planets, and they were always empty. Life simply couldn't evolve in such horrible conditions, yet here was proof floating right in front of them. Somehow, against all logic and science, beings had not only survived on Sol 3, but had actually built spaceships and traveled to the stars. The implications were staggering. "Set course to intercept," Veltara ordered. "But keep our distance. We have no idea what we're dealing with." As her ship moved toward the mysterious craft, Veltara couldn't shake one thought. What kind of creatures could survive in hell itself? The moment Captain Veltara sent her report to Galactic Command, every alarm system in the sector started screaming. Red emergency lights flashed across dozens of space stations as the news spread like wildfire through the communication networks. Dr. Thekra was eating his evening meal when the urgent message reached him. As the galaxy's top expert on dangerous life forms, he had studied creatures from the deadliest worlds known to science. But even he had never imagined finding survivors from a Class 15 planet. "Impossible," he muttered, dropping his food container. His forearms moved quickly across his computer, pulling up every file on Sol 3. What he saw made his blood run cold. The planet was a nightmare. Surface temperatures that could melt metal in some places, freeze nitrogen in others, massive storms that lasted for months, earthquakes that could split continents, and the atmosphere, filled with a gas so reactive it would burn through most materials the galaxy used for construction. Dr. Thekra immediately contacted the Galactic Council. "We cannot allow direct contact," he warned them during the emergency meeting. "Anything that evolved on Sol 3 would be beyond our understanding of survival. They could be walking weapons." Council leader Mordun listened carefully. She had seen Dr. Thekra's reports on other dangerous species, and his warnings had always been correct. "What do you recommend, Doctor?" "Complete quarantine. Keep them in deep space, far from any populated systems. Study them from a safe distance." Only. But the Council chamber buzzed with excitement. Scientists from across the galaxy were already demanding access to study these impossible beings. Military leaders wanted to know if they posed a threat. Philosophers wondered what kind of minds could develop in such harsh conditions. "Doctor," spoke up Council member Zarvan, Surely you understand the scientific importance of this discovery. We're talking about the first intelligent life ever found from a Class 15 world. The knowledge we could gain is beyond measure. Doctor, Thekra's warning grew more urgent. You don't understand. On my homeworld we have predators that can tear through battle armor, but they evolved on a Class 3 planet. These beings come from a world 15 times more dangerous. Their bodies, their minds, their very instincts would be shaped by constant death and destruction. The debate raged for hours. Some council members sided with Dr. Thekra, arguing for extreme caution. Others pushed for immediate study, claiming the potential benefits outweighed the risks. Finally, curiosity won. The vote was close, but the decision was made. They would study the mysterious ship and its occupants, but with every possible safety measure in place. Captain Veltara received new orders within hours. She was to maintain a safe distance of exactly 100,000 kilometers. No direct contact until they knew more. Specialized containment teams were being sent to handle whatever they might find. As the Harmony's Edge held its position in space, watching the drifting ship, nobody could have predicted what would happen when those sleeping beings finally woke up. The first sign of movement came at 0347 Galactic Standard Time. Captain Veltara was sipping her morning drink when her communications officer nearly jumped out of his chair. "Captain, the ship, something's happening!" On the main screen they watched as lights flickered on inside the mysterious craft. Steam vented from several ports, and what looked like ice began melting off the hull. The alien crew held their breath, knowing they were about to witness something no one in galactic history had ever seen. Inside the human ship, Captain Minho's eyes slowly opened. The cryo-sleep chamber hissed as it released him from 43 years of frozen sleep. His body ached in ways he'd never felt before, but he was alive. More importantly, his crew was alive. The aliens watching expected panic, screaming, maybe even madness. After all, these beings had been drifting in space for over 4 decades with failing life support systems. Their ship was barely holding together. Any normal species would be terrified. Instead, Captain Minho sat up, stretched his shoulders, and calmly checked his wrist computer. "Well," he said to himself, "that was longer than expected." One by one, the other cryopods opened. Engineer Jiho climbed out first, immediately walking to a control panel to check the ship's systems. He whistled softly when he saw the readings. "Captain, we've been out for 43 years, 2 months and 16 days. Life support is running at 12%. We've got maybe 6 hours of breathable air left." Captain Minho nodded as if Jiho had just told him the coffee was cold. "What about the engines?" "Dead, have been for about 30 years, looks like." Medic Somin emerged from her pod, running quick health checks on herself. "How's everyone feeling? Any major issues?" Navigator Hyon was already at her station, trying to figure out where they were. "Captain, I'm not seeing any familiar star. Patterns were definitely not in Earth space anymore." The alien observers couldn't believe what they were seeing. These beings had just woken up to discover they'd been lost in space for decades. Their ship was dying, and they had no idea where they were. Yet they were acting like this was just another Tuesday at the office. Dr. Thekra, who had arrived to observe, watched in fascination and horror. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Any intelligent species would be in complete panic right now." On the human ship, Captain Minho was getting a full status report. The situation was about as bad as it could get. They were stranded in unknown space with no working engines, barely any life support, and no way to contact Earth. "Well, team," Minho said, clapping his hands together, "we've been in worse spots before. Remember the Jupiter mission when the reactor leaked?" Jiho laughed. "At least this time we're not being cooked by radiation." Somin was already preparing medical supplies for what would clearly be a long ordeal. "I've got enough emergency rations for maybe 2 weeks if we're careful." The aliens watching this exchange were stunned into silence. These creatures were treating a deadly crisis like a minor inconvenience. What kind of world could possibly produce beings with such impossible calm in the face of certain death? Doctor. Thekra couldn't sleep. For 3 days straight he had been staring at the medical scan results from the human ship, and nothing made sense. Every reading seemed to break the basic rules of biology that had held true across the entire galaxy. "Run the bone density scan again," he told his assistant for the 5th time that morning. The results came back identical. The humans' bones were nearly 3 times denser than any known intelligent species. Dr. Thekra had seen creatures with bones this strong before, but only in massive predators from high-gravity worlds. Those creatures were usually the size of buildings and could barely think beyond basic hunting instincts. But these humans were small, walked upright, and had built spaceships. It was impossible. "Doctor," his assistant called out, "you need to see the atmospheric readings from their ship." Dr. Thekra looked at the data and felt his 4 hearts skip a beat. The humans were breathing an atmosphere that was 21% oxygen. Pure oxygen was used in the galaxy's most dangerous industrial processes. It was so reactive that most species couldn't survive in anything higher than 3% without their lungs burning away. "They're breathing fire," he whispered. But the real shock came when they analyzed the humans' blood samples. Dr. Thekra had to check the equipment 3 times because he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The humans' immune systems were like nothing in the Galactic medical database. Their white blood cells were attacking and destroying test pathogens that could wipe out entire civilizations. Diseases that had ended wars and collapsed governments were being eliminated by these humans' bodies in minutes. "Get me a connection." "To the human ship," Dr. Thekra ordered. "I need to speak with their medic." When Sumin's face appeared on the screen, Dr. Thekra tried to stay calm. "I need to ask you about your medical history. The scans we're seeing are unusual." Somin smiled. "What kind of unusual?" "Your bone density suggests you evolved under crushing gravity. Your atmosphere would kill most species in minutes. Your immune system is destroying pathogens that we consider weapons of mass destruction. How is this possible?" Somin looked confused. "I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. That's just normal human biology." "Normal?" Dr. Thekra's voice cracked. "You're telling me this is normal for your species?" "Well, yeah, we evolved on Earth. It's a pretty tough place to live." Dr. Thekra pulled up his files on Sol 3. "Your planet has active volcanoes, massive storms, earthquakes that can level cities, and thousands of species that produce deadly toxins. How did you survive long enough to evolve intelligence?" Somin shrugged. "We adapted. Humans are pretty good at surviving stuff. We've lived through ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcano eruptions. You just learn to deal with whatever nature throws at you. But the psychological stress alone should have prevented complex society from developing," Dr. Thekra argued. "Stress?" Somin laughed. "Doc, stress is what makes us stronger. When everything around you is trying to kill you, you either give up or you get tougher. Humans don't give up." Dr. Thekra ended the call and sat in stunned silence. These beings weren't just surviving impossible conditions, they were thriving because of them. Earth hadn't created victims. It had forged weapons disguised as explorers. The interview room aboard the Harmony's Edge had been specially prepared for first contact. Dr. Thekra sat across from Captain Minho, with recording devices capturing every word. What he was about to learn would change everything the galaxy thought they knew about survival. "Tell me about your homeworld," Dr. Thekra began, trying to sound casual despite his racing hearts. Captain Minho leaned back in his chair, a small smile on his face. "Earth, it's beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds, we call it the Blue Planet." Dr. Thekra checked his notes. "But our scans show it's classified as Class 15, the most dangerous category we have." "Dangerous?" Minho looked genuinely surprised. "I guess it can be challenging sometimes." "Challenging?" Dr. Thekra's voice rose. "Your atmosphere is 21% oxygen. That's industrial cutting gas." Minho shrugged. "We need it to breathe. Makes fires burn pretty hot, though. We've learned to be careful with that." The alien doctor pulled up holographic displays of Earth's surface. "Your planet's crust is broken into massive plates that constantly move and crash into each other." "Oh, you mean earthquakes?" Minho nodded. "Yeah, we get those. Some are pretty big. The 2011 one in Japan moved the entire island 8 feet. We rebuilt afterward." Dr. Thekra stared at him. "You rebuilt after your landmass moved 8 feet?" "Of course. What else would we do?" Before Dr. Thekra could respond, Pilot Yuna entered the room. She had been exploring the alien ship and looked excited to meet new people. "Captain, these beings are fascinating," she said. Did you know they've never experienced a hurricane? Dr. Thekra turned to her. What's a hurricane? Yuna's eyes lit up. Massive rotating storms with winds over 150 miles per hour. They can be 300 miles wide and destroy entire cities. We get about 6 big ones every year. Every year? Dr. Thekra whispered. Sometimes more, Yuna continued cheerfully. Last year we had 12. Hurricane Petra was particularly nasty, flooded half of Florida. But people just moved inland for a few weeks, then came back to clean up. Captain Minho nodded. Yuna here is from Australia. Tell him about the wildlife there, Yuna laughed. Oh, Australia's fun. We've got spiders the size of dinner plates, snakes that can kill you in 15 minutes, jellyfish that are basically invisible death, and crocodiles that can grow to 20 feet long. Dr. Thekra was taking notes frantically. And you live with these creatures? Sure, you just learn what to avoid and what to watch out for. My dad was bitten by a taipan once. That's one of our deadly snakes. Spent 3 days in the hospital, but he was fine. Fine? Dr. Thekra's voice cracked. He survived a bite from a creature you describe as deadly? Well, we have anti-venom for most things. Humans are pretty good at making medicine for stuff. That tries to kill us. Captain Minho stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Doctor, I think you're missing the point. Earth isn't trying to kill us, it's making us stronger. Every challenge we face teaches us something new. Dr. Thekra sat back in his chair, overwhelmed. These beings spoke of natural disasters, deadly. Creatures and toxic atmospheres like other species talked about minor weather changes. They had turned hell into home. The cultural exchange sessions had become the most watched broadcasts in galactic history. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds tuned in daily to hear humans talk about their impossible planet. Today, Security Officer Daiho was sharing what he called a brief overview of human history. So about 75,000 years ago, a supervolcano erupted, Daiho said, as casually as someone might mention what they had for breakfast. Mount Toba. It covered most of the planet in ash and blocked out the sun for about 6 years. The alien historians in the room exchanged worried glances. Dr. Velnax, the galaxy's leading expert on extinction events, leaned forward. This would have killed all life on your planet. Daiho smiled. Well, it nearly did. Our population dropped to maybe 10,000 people total. But we survived. Humans are stubborn that way. 10,000? Dr. Velnax's voice shook. Your entire species was reduced to 10,000 individuals, and you didn't go extinct. Nope. We learned to make better tools, work together more, and find new ways to get food. By the time the volcanic winter ended, we were actually stronger than before. Communications specialist Nari joined the conversation, carrying what looked like a small electronic device. Want to hear something we created during one of our hardest times? She pressed a button, and music filled the room. It was beautiful and sad at the same time, with voices singing in harmony about hope and loss. This is called a spiritual, Nari explained. It was created by humans who were enslaved and forced to work in terrible conditions. Even when they had almost nothing, they created beauty. The alien observers sat in stunned silence. The music spoke of pain they couldn't imagine, but also of strength that refused to break. We have thousands of art forms that came from suffering, Nari continued. Paintings created during wars, poetry written in prison camps, songs sung during natural disasters. Humans don't just survive, we create meaning from our struggles. Dr. Thekra, who had been studying humans for days now, asked the question that had been bothering him. But why? Why didn't you just give up? Any rational species would have found a way to end the suffering. Daiho and Nari looked at each other and laughed. Give up? Daiho shook his head. That's not really a human concept. When things get bad, we get creative. We've survived ice ages by learning to make fire and build shelters. We've survived plagues by developing medicine. We've survived wars by learning to make peace, Nari nodded. Every time Earth threw something terrible at us, we found a way to not just survive, but to grow from it. We learned that problems aren't roadblocks. They're puzzles to solve. But the psychological toll, Dr. Velnax protested. Constant threat, constant loss, constant struggle. How do you maintain hope? Deho's expression became serious. Because we learned something important early on. The worst thing that can happen to a human isn't death, it's giving up. Once you give up, you're already dead, so we never do. Nari pulled up images on her device. Humans helping each other after earthquakes, rebuilding after floods, celebrating. Life even in the darkest times. This is who we are, she said softly. We fall down, we get back up, and we help others do the same. It's not about being strong enough to never fall. It's about being strong enough to always get back up. The room fell silent as the aliens began to understand something profound about humanity. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Representatives from over 300 worlds filled the massive hall, their voices creating a symphony of excitement, fear, and heated debate. At the center of it all sat 5 humans who had no idea they were about to change the course of galactic history. Council leader Morden struggled to maintain order as arguments erupted across the chamber. The discovery of humans had split the galaxy into 2 very different camps. These beings could solve problems we've struggled with for thousands of years, shouted Ambassador Kreltar from the mining colonies. Our workers can't survive in high radiation environments, but these humans seem immune to conditions that would kill us in minutes. Engineer Jiho, sitting in the center of the chaos, looked confused. "Excuse me," he said, raising his hand like a student in class. "What exactly are you talking about? We're just regular people." The chamber fell silent. Here was a being from the most dangerous world ever discovered, calling himself regular. Dr. Zephron from the medical consortium stood up. "Regular, your immune system destroys pathogens that have wiped out entire star systems. We have planets that have been quarantined for centuries because of diseases you could probably cure by just visiting them." "I don't understand," Jiho replied honestly. "Are you saying you can't treat infections? We've had antibiotics for over a century." On the other side of the chamber, General Vexhan was making very different arguments. "You're all missing the obvious danger here. These creatures come from a world that created them to be living weapons. Look at their history. Constant warfare, survival of the fittest, adaptation through violence." Captain Minho stood up slowly. "General, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Yes, humans have fought wars, but we've also built civilizations based on cooperation. We have art, music, literature, philosophy, built on the bones of your enemies," General Vexhan shot back. "Built despite our conflicts," Minho corrected firmly. "We learned that working together makes us stronger than fighting alone." The debate raged for hours. Scientists wanted immediate contact with Earth, believing human resilience could unlock secrets of survival they'd never imagined. Military leaders feared an invasion of Deathworld warriors. Philosophers were fascinated by minds shaped by constant adversity. Ambassador Yelnira from the peaceful Harmony world spoke softly, but her words carried across the chamber. "I've been listening to these humans for days. They don't speak like conquerors, they speak like teachers, like people who have learned hard lessons and want to share them." Navigator Hyun nodded. "That's all we've ever wanted to do. Explore. Learn, share what we've discovered. We came to space because we hoped to find others like us." "Others like you?" Dr. Thekra laughed nervously. "There is no one like you in the galaxy. You're unique." Medic Somin looked sad at this news. "That's disappointing. We were hoping to learn from other species. We thought maybe we could help each other solve problems." The simplicity of her statement hit the chamber like a physical force. Here were beings who had survived hell itself, and their first instinct wasn't conquest or domination, it was cooperation. Council leader Morden called for order. "The question before us is simple. Do we invite humanity to join galactic civilization, or do we maintain isolation? The vote would determine the future of both humanity and the galaxy itself." The emergency alarm started screaming at 1400 hours, cutting through the heated council debates like a knife. Captain Veltara's voice crackled over the communication system, filled with a terror that chilled everyone who heard it. All stations, we have a code black emergency. Void Leviathan approaching from Sector 7. All ships prepare for evacuation protocols immediately." The council chamber erupted into panic. Void Leviathans were the stuff of nightmares. Massive creatures that lived in the dark spaces between stars, feeding on energy and metal. They were nearly indestructible, the size of small moons, and had destroyed entire fleets without even noticing. General Vexhan was shouting orders into his communicator. All military vessels retreat to safe distance. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. While 300 alien representatives screamed and ran for escape pods, the 5 humans sat calmly in their seats, watching the chaos with interest. What exactly is a void leviathan? Captain Minho asked Dr. Thekra, who was frantically packing his research equipment. Imagine a creature the size of your moon, covered in armor plating that can deflect nuclear weapons, with tentacles that can crush battleships, the doctor replied without looking up. They're attracted to large energy sources, and they consume everything in their path. Engineer Jiho stood up and cracked his knuckles. Sounds like an engineering problem. What kind? Of weapons do you have on this station? Weapons? Dr. Thekra looked at him like he'd gone insane. You don't fight a void leviathan, you run. Through the station's massive windows, they could see it approaching. A writhing mass of darkness and tentacles, easily 10 kilometers long. Its very presence seemed to bend light around it. Captain Minho activated his communicator. Captain Veltara, this is Minho. What's your defensive capabilities? Defensive, came the panicked reply. We're a research station. We have basic shields and some mining lasers, nothing that could even scratch that thing. Mining lasers? Minho repeated thoughtfully. Jiho, what do you think? The engineer was already studying the station's schematics on a nearby display. If we could overload the power coupling and redirect all energy through the main deflector array, yeah, we could probably turn those mining lasers into something more interesting. Medic Somin was looking out at the approaching creature with the calm expression of someone solving a crossword puzzle. Its movement pattern suggests it's following the station's energy signature. If we could create a bigger energy source somewhere else, Navigator Hyon nodded. Use one of the smaller ships as bait. Overcharge its reactor to make it more attractive. Then the station. The aliens who hadn't yet evacuated stared at the humans in complete shock. These beings were discussing tactics to fight a creature that had terrified the galaxy for millennia. You can't be serious, General Vexhan said, having returned to coordinate the evacuation. That thing has destroyed entire battle fleets. Captain Minho smiled, and for the first time, the aliens caught a glimpse of something truly frightening, the look of a predator that had just found worthy prey. General, we're from a planet where everything tries to kill us every single day. We've fought hurricanes, survived volcanic eruptions, and outlasted ice ages. We didn't come this far just to give up, because something big showed up. The void leviathan was now close enough that its tentacles were scraping against the station's outer hull. The lights flickered as it began to drain their power. Time to get to work, Minho said calmly. The silence in the council chamber was deafening. Through the massive windows, they could see the remains of the void leviathan floating in space, something that had never happened before in galactic history. The creature that had terrorized civilizations for thousands of years was dead, killed by 5 humans using mining equipment and spare parts. Captain Minho walked back into the chamber, his uniform torn and covered in strange alien fluid from the creature's insides. Behind him came his crew, Jiho wiping grease from his hands, Somin checking her medical scanner for any injuries, Hyon updating her navigation charts, and pilot Yuna grinning like she'd just finished the most exciting roller coaster ride of her life. Sorry about the mess, Minho said to the stunned aliens. That thing was tougher than we expected, but once Jiho figured out how to reverse the polarity on your mining lasers, it was just a matter of finding the right spot to hit. Council leader Morden found her voice first. You killed it. The Void Leviathan, you actually killed it. Well, technically we disabled its nervous system first, Somin corrected helpfully. Then Hyon navigated us through its internal structure to reach the brain cavity. Once we were there, it was just basic surgery with some improvised tools. Engineer Jiho held up what looked like a modified mining drill. Amazing what you can do with the right equipment. Your technology is actually pretty advanced once you know how to use it creatively. The aliens stared at them in complete shock. Not one of the humans seemed to think they had done anything particularly remarkable. They had just solved a problem that had plagued the galaxy for millennia, and they were treating it like a routine maintenance job. General Vexhan, who had spent the entire battle predicting doom and disaster, slowly approached Captain Minho. How did you know what to do?" Minho shrugged. "Back on Earth, we deal with dangerous creatures all the time, sharks, bears, venomous snakes. The trick is to understand how they think and move, then use that against them." This thing was bigger, but the principles were the same. Dr. Thekra was frantically taking notes, but the courage required to actually board a void leviathan while it was alive. No species in galactic history has ever attempted such a thing. Yuna laughed. "Doc, my grandmother used to wrestle crocodiles for fun. This was just a bigger crocodile that happened to live in space." The council members looked at each other, and suddenly the vote that had seemed so difficult became obvious. These weren't conquerors or monsters, they were problem solvers. They were exactly what the galaxy needed. Council leader Mordun stood up, her voice carrying across the chamber. "By unanimous decision of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby invited to join galactic civilization as full partners. We offer you membership not as subjects, but as equals who have proven their worth beyond any doubt." Captain Minho smiled. "We accept with honor, but we should probably head home first to let everyone know we're not alone in the universe. This is going to be quite a surprise for Earth." As the human crew prepared for their journey home, Captain Minho stood at the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Soon those same stars would be filled with human ships, carrying explorers and dreamers and problem solvers to every corner of the galaxy. The universe was about to meet humanity, and nothing would ever be the same.